Right now, on the line, brought to you by Ford and your North Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. It is the owner and general manager of your Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones. Good morning, sir.
Guys, am I on?
Yeah,
sir.
We got you.
What's up?
Hey, super. Sounded like we had a disconnect coming on, and I would have felt funny continuing to talk to myself and answering myself all morning. So this is a break to be able to be heard.
When is because I feel like every human in the world does that. When are you most likely to talk to yourself?
Oh,
is it?
Well, I do it all the time during
Okay.
those football games. And it's answer and statement time, right and left. But, I wouldn't know what to do if I couldn't have conversations with myself in general. So the main thing is that I would like for everybody to know that I do a lot of laughing at some of that ridiculous stuff I'm reading back to myself.
Now, in terms of fantastic answer,
Look,
by the
you
way.
can't have fun with yourself.
For sure,
You know?
for sure. In terms of the game against Carolina, I was curious your thoughts about this. Do you think the struggles of number 1 overall pick Bryce Young and the Panthers in general are a good reminder of the perils that can come with a rebuild and a new quarterback?
Well, first of all, there's one of the biggest challenges in sport is for a player to come in and initially have his first steps in the NFL playing quarterback. And I'm reminded of Aikman when his early years of certainly protections, sensing where the protection needed to come from, just those kinds of things alone. So, unlike so many other sports, you have to have a sense of what's happening around you, and especially at that spot, not only for your protection, but where you're going with the ball in case you're throwing the ball. And then you've really usually gotten quite a responsibility on setting it up before the snap, and then, of course, you're reading after the snap. Now, I don't need to go into all of that. It is, without a doubt, the hardest position that I know of to play and have the normal athletic abilities come out that I know of in sport.
Jerry, there's been some, fortune. Aikman did have those moments and turned into and developed into a Super Bowl champion, a Hall of Famer. Romo had his time learning the NFL, and Dak walks right into it and immediately is like, all right, but he fit with the system and he did very well with it. And I was always been kind of curious your perspective on when you're trying to draft a quarterback or when you're looking at a quarterback, would you rather have a guy that you say he's going to fit any system, or do you say we have to build a system around this guy, or he only is going to fit into something like this? How do you manage that part of it?
Well, let me say this. If I had done this a lot, 20 times, it would be different. We haven't. I haven't. I had the challenge when I came into the league of having Troy Aikman sitting there, and I had the number 1 pick, and there was Troy Aikman. And Troy Aikman would go down as one of the poster boys of working with a quarterback right off the bat. So let's X that one out. One time I was asked to be on a committee to select head coaches, and by the commissioner, not on the committee, but to chair the committee, because we'd had such success with Jimmy and Barry Switzer early. And I said, I need to be sitting in the audience because I've run out of teammates and run out of guys that I knew so well. And those were my first 2 selections, and that was pretty much, as it turns out, I knew them to both have genius IQs and have some of the most outstanding accomplishments in college. But apart from that, I knew them. Well, where I'm going back to Troy was, from that standpoint, and the successes that we enjoyed in those years are a direct result of his excellence and what he was able to do uniquely. And so where do you go from there? You can go through a series of quarterbacks after that, let's say, that puts you down in the real world and what you're trying to make happen at that position. And so I've always run from the idea of having to draft into, be right if there is such a thing, when you draft it, and then the development and evolving of that quarterback in a time when you're having to make decisions about his supporting cast that are dramatic, significant. If you've got good players that you've drafted, you usually are drafting good players because you're what? You're high in the draft. Mm-hmm. And so you've got good players that you're investing a lot into for the future to go with the evolving and maturation and development of that quarterback. It is a colossal problem. Well, what you need to have is something like a Romo come along. Now, where did that come from? Well, there you had somebody excellent, and you could develop immediately develop offense around him. And it turns out he was exceptional. My biggest disappointment is we didn't get a Super Bowl while he was here. Then Dak Prescott, and I'm cutting through several personalities in between, came along.
That's okay.
And I've never seen anybody that could basically take it from explaining it to him what you wanted to do, take it to the practice field and take it to the field like Prescott. Never. And so he has been a unique development quarterback, much less a unique, prominent quarterback.
Now, I was curious, this is not necessarily just about the Bengals, but when we were watching Thursday Night Football last night, obviously Joe Burrow had some problems out there, and there's discussion about how he wasn't on the injury report all week. I'm curious if you can walk us through how serious the NFL takes injury report violations and what goes along with that.
I don't know of any they take more serious. They want pure transparency and injury or availability. And they want you to err on the side of expose the any way a player is compromised from the expected level of play. And very serious about it, very, very punitive when you don't do it. They're very serious about it, NFL. They want to know if anybody is off his game when they come into the game physically.
Jerry, you've talked about the offense evolving and kind of developing this season and how things have kind of, after the bye week, things changed a little bit. You started to see a few different things. And I was just kind of curious if that was something McCarthy discussed with you ahead of the season. Like he was giving you a heads up of, early on it's going to be like this, but as we go along, we're going to have to add new wrinkles and develop. And are you kind of expecting that growth and development by the end of the year?
Well, that wasn't discussed similar to that.
Okay.
What was discussed is that we have in place a lot of great fundamentals that, of course, that we have had with Dak, over the ensuing years. You don't want to throw all that out with the trash. We want to build off of it. And then Mike, has been around this for the last 3 years. And so we want to take advantage of that. He knew these players. It wasn't like a new head coach knew the offensive coordinator coming in.
Right.
He knew them well, knew the players, and knew the nuances of how and what we were trying to do with the offense. So then, okay, what? What was, all right, now take that and put the Mike touch to it, the Super Bowl Mike touch to it, the things that you think could help it, not to dismiss that he had influenced it with before. Mm-hmm. So he had some mark on this offense, Mike did. And so what you're seeing is a lot adjusting for the way the opposing teams are lining up against us. And that's as it should be. That's as it should be. And so those kinds of things, imposing your will, imposing your system on the opposing team week in and week out is not realistic. What is realistic is to make adjustments within the philosophy that you're trying to use your personnel to get to. Mike's doing a great job of that right now, and the adjustments you're seeing are that.
Now, sticking with the offense and specifically the offensive personnel, I'm curious about y'all's bigger picture philosophy when it comes to Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's only on the franchise tag, so does that force you to evaluate Rico Dowdle as the season goes along as a potential number one to determine how everything is going to shuffle once the season's over?
Well, Rico has had the last going on 3 years now, Rico's had the highest regard with our coaching staff, and I'm sure his teammates as well. Rico's a talented runner, as we're all seeing. He's had a couple of injuries that set him back, but make no mistake about it, he had the credentials when he got here of a talented runner. And his running style is every bit as unique as any back in the league, and it's different, and it's effective. So, I mean, there's a reason why Rico was the second on the depth chart. There's a reason why, even though he's had some nicks last year, there's a reason why he's hanging where he is, because he has that kind of talent. It's great to see for him and us it come to the front. Now, Pollard is a different story. Pollard has, as obviously we all know that, he has burst, he has instincts, and he literally has the fear of the defense anytime he gets hold of the ball. So we'll have days, we'll have some good days ahead of us. This is early in this season, and hopefully seasons to come. But I haven't lost anything about my thoughts about how Pollard can be the factor in us winning some games. And it's obviously got to have the coordination of good line play, good blocking, good design by the coaches, good timing of when we use him. All of that will play a big part of it. But I'm not seeing of any diminished burst from Pollard at all. And so I think we'll get him his days, and it'll come in. But, boy, if anything, it's just such a welcome to have that backup strength that we've got there, and that'll keep us fresh legs in there.
I think you essentially just answered my next question, because I was going to say, I have to admit, watching this team along the way, it does feel like Pollard's burst has diminished thus far this season, but you do not believe that is the case.
No, sir. No, sir. It hasn't. His speed, we can time those guys nowadays with the technology you've got out there. No, he's got burst, he's got acceleration, and hasn't diminished at all.
Jerry, you lost Trayvon Diggs early in the season. Leighton Vander Esch, we just heard the news on Tuesday about him, and we got that going. And I'm just kind of looking at this team, and despite those types of big-time starter losses, this defense on that side of the ball is still very good. How many teams around the league do you think have the kind of personnel luxury that you guys have where you can just slide a Ron Bland in there and feel comfortable?
I'm proud of our depth. I think that's one of the strengths on this team. And I think Mike is doing a great job of managing our practices, managing the wear and tear on the players. And I think that's one of his big pluses, Mike McCarthy. He is not only aware of it, but he actually plans it that way. And so I think that can pay off for us. Now, don't get me wrong, an injury is maybe totally out of our control. Mm-hmm. But you've got to know you're going to have them, and you've got to somehow survive it. And it's a part of getting where you want to be at the end of the season. This is a game in a way, of attrition. And so you need depth. You can't have it all. And so you've got to have sometimes it happens in the right place, and invariably it seems like it all happens in one spot. When you get it going, all of a sudden you've got two players that are hurt in a spot rather than just the one. So all of that is there, and I just as we move forward week to week, push this thing forward, get us down to where we can get there for the playoffs. I like what we're doing with what we've got in terms of we're getting better each week.
Because Mike has had to do a couple of different things too, and he is one of those guys, he has the skill set to do pretty much anything. Do you think asking him to go away from the pass rush and be more linebacker is unfair to him, or do you think he understands that? What's your feeling on that?
I was sensitive about him being used as a pressure player when we first drafted him. When we drafted him, the problem was we hadn't seen it that much, especially from the outside. And we hadn't seen him. He didn't play his senior year. And so I said, boy, to put a pick this high on a non-pressure player like a linebacker was concerning. Of course, I didn't know we were talking about Michael Parsons when we drafted him. And he's shown us all some things that were you didn't have the extent of the appreciation for. Now he's going to damage any place he is. He's going to damage that offense. On the other hand, pressure is where you can damage it the most. And so early I would have been sensitive about the snaps of rushing or coverage. I'm not today. Dan Quinn knows more in his little finger about that ratio or that combination of how to best use that and what he's trying to do out there, setting different things up than any of us know if we thought about one quarter all day long. So we've got the right guy driving the car.
Yeah, this is a really good point there. And before we let you go, Jerry, I'm responsible for the turkey next week. I got to make sure it's all cooked and everything, and I'm getting my son involved with it this year. So that's the responsibility my wife has given me. What was the main part of Thanksgiving that you were always responsible for? Did you have a certain task growing up, or even one now?
Well, let me say this. Don't mess that up. To practice it, you've got a lot of people counting on you on cutting that turkey up. But all kidding aside, I've always, my memory, done Thanksgiving. What I call Thanksgiving is the day after Thanksgiving with the Cowboys. But I've always done that in a hunting wild game scene. And as a matter of fact, we used to all pile up in a clubhouse. I'd have as many as 8 of my kids, nieces, nephews sleeping with me in the same bed for many years, for 2 or 3 days. And that was our idea of Thanksgiving and going hunting. Consequently, on the table, you had things that were oriented around game, hunting game. You had wild duck, you had goose, you had venison, had all that kind of stuff. And so today, that carries the day. That's what I still enjoy. And the other thing is those recipes. My mom got her recipes from my grandmother, and those were oriented toward the cooking that you might have in the South or the rural areas. And it still maintains that and carries through. And that's the most fun part, is tasting that and remember Mama's dressing.
Man, outstanding stuff as always. We appreciate you. Looking forward to this weekend's game, Thanksgiving game, and we'll catch you next Friday.
Well, it's a lot of fun to be on with you guys in these circumstances. But I'll tell you what, remember Arizona. So when we go over here to Carolina, remember Arizona. We got to go over and do business.
Absolutely. Appreciate it,
Thanks,
sir.
guys.